because a story has arisen that the Town Hall Rich List has got 2,802 staff receiving over £100,000 a year, despite the fact that people have had to pay more, much more, for their council tax this year. Harry, very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. Now, obviously, it's a difficult time to be running a local council because, of course, things have become so expensive to do. I'm not quite sure whether there's any truth to that statement, because people are paying now, I think in effect, did I see the average council tax is now over £2,000 a year?
Not quite. It's across England. It's £1,900 for a Band D bill, but you're quite right to say that over a third of English councils are now charging more than £2,000 for a council tax bill, and if this trend continues next year, that could be two-thirds of English councils. And the point you make about has running a council got more expensive? I mean, when you look at inflation figures and wage growth over the last 10 years, we've seen very, very low inflation. Wage growth has only started picking up in the last few years. Of course, probably the effects of COVID are going to stifle that somewhat. But people are paying huge amounts in council tax every month. They are not, in many cases, and we get emails all the time saying we are not getting the services we deserve, yet they're seeing these senior council officials, you mentioned the 2,800 of them, taking home remuneration of more than £100,000, 693 on more than £150,000, and they're quite rightly questioning why are we having to see our council tax go up.
And these are
5%.
technically civil servants, I suppose, right? These are not elected individuals, because elected councillors don't really get very much money at all for being elected councillors. But these are the kind of administrators, if you like, and some of whom are getting over £500,000 a year. I think I've said this to you before when we've spoken about this, when I was working up in Edinburgh. And the argument for paying the chief administrator of Edinburgh City Council a load of money was that they basically should be commensurate with what they would have got in the private sector. But many of these people are not in any way qualified for the private sector, because all they've ever done is worked in a council.
Well, as we often say, I've never really seen any of them go and work for a FTSE 100 company or anything like that. I mean, there may well be an argument that they're worthy of these salaries if it were the case that they were keeping council tax low, they were eradicating wasteful spending, they were ramping up efficiency, people were getting the best services possible. I probably wouldn't have an argument with it, but that simply isn't happening. I mean, you mentioned an example there. There was someone in Coventry. They had a loss of office compensation payment of £395,000. So that took their total remuneration, so including salary, expenses, that sort of thing, to £573,000. In that same time in Coventry, council tax, this person was there for about 4 years in that chief executive job. The same time in Coventry, council tax went up by £300 for people in a Band D bill. So, I can absolutely understand why people feel aggrieved by council tax. It's a pretty unfair tax. It's not based on the ability to pay. And we did some polling on this. Almost 60% of people said that council should be freezing or cutting these salaries for senior staff.
Yeah, absolutely right. And given that we're now having conversations about the kind of the repopulating or otherwise of office buildings in cities in this country, in private companies, is there any conversation going on inside of councils about what they could be doing, perhaps to leave, to lessen the burden of rent paying that they pay, or vacating perhaps more buildings? Because I'm sure an awful lot of people working for the council are currently not working in office.
Yeah, this does seem to be the case, this working from home revolution. Funnily enough, I wrote about Slough Council the other day that spent millions on an office restoration that looks like something you'd see in sort of Silicon Valley rather than...
It is amazing, isn't it? Because they seem to think that it's rather like the way the government says, oh, don't worry, these tests will be free when you take the 2 COVID tests a week. No, they won't be free. We'll be paying for them. The taxpayers paying for all of this.
Exactly, and that's it. It's not their money, it's our money, it's taxpayers' money.
Right.
There are some things that are happening on the savings front, though. Councillors have been conducting a lot of their full council meetings via Zoom and Windows Teams and all that sort of stuff. There was an example in West Sussex or East Sussex, I forget now, but they were making something like £6,000 a month in travel expenses savings.
Right.
So
well, that's good.
There's an issue around, do you get the full transparency and all that sort of thing? But I think if you gave taxpayers the option, well, we can save you £72,000 a year, and that's just in one council. So if you multiply that out across multiple councils, there are huge savings to be made. But when we've seen council tax go up by 111% in cash terms in England in the last 20 years, councils have to be absolutely ruthless at trying to make these savings, because we just cannot go on like this. The average council tax rise was 4.4% this year.
Right.
Wages haven't grown that much. Inflation's about 0.4%. This system just cannot go on.
Exactly
And
right.
yeah.
And
After you, Mike.
I was going to say, and for people in the higher end, who are just about sort of managing to pay what the council tax is, I mean, that's a big increase. If you're already paying upwards of, £1,500 a year, to go up another 4% is a big increase.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes back to that point that we do get these. I'm never short of material from councils wasting money. I write blogs for the TPA and other websites about this, and this is what angers people. You're paying huge amounts of money. As we keep saying, it's these £2,000 bills. Over a third of English councils now. It could well be over 2/3 next year if we see similar rates this time. And the roads are still potholed. People aren't getting the frontline services they deserve, and then they see these huge pay packets being given to senior staff. I mean, take Liverpool Council, for example. I think they had something like 14 staff getting over £100,000, despite the absolute shambles, quite frankly, that we've seen there recently.
Yeah.
And now Liverpool has the highest council tax in the Northwest.
I know, quite extraordinary stuff. We'll keep an eye on it, Harry. We'll come back to you as well soon and in the future, because it's all very well saying, we're making savings by not actually going to meetings. I'd like to see that done in black and white on paper to see whether it's actually being saved or whether they're spending it somewhere else, because we've seen already in Parliament, for example, that MPs' expenses don't appear to have gone down particularly, even though most of them are not actually even going there.